Hiya, welcome to Darren in the studio. Thanks for swinging by for another video. You see us here, you find us on a very special day. I am recording this on February the 18th, 2024. And today marks 50 years of the very first Kiss album. February the 18th, in the States, I'm sure it came out. But I'm not sure when it would have come out in the UK and other parts of Europe. Maybe you know and you can let me know. Maybe it came out all around the world on February the 18th. But certainly in America, the very first Kiss album put out on Casablanca Records, February the 18th, 1974. Of course, this was Kiss's first outing on vinyl. But they've been around for a year or so doing live shows and gaining a bit of a reputation as a really great live act in and around the New York scene, and also further afield in the States. It would take a couple of 3 years before they would actually come to the UK and do any shows live over here. And as far as I'm aware, there wasn't any promotional things done here in the UK. But like I say, you know, you might know different, and if you do, let me know in the comments below. So I thought what I'd do as a Kiss fan, and as this is, like I say, a very, very significant day in Kiss history, today marking the 50th anniversary of the first Kiss album being released. So what I've done is I've gathered together the copies of the first Kiss album that I have, and we're going to go through them. It's 5 copies, so it's not like I've got millions and millions of variants of the first Kiss album. But the thing is with the 5 copies that I've got is they are all different. Although they are the first album, they are all different in some way, significantly different, if you like. So we're going to start with the earliest copy of the first album of Kisses that I have, and it would be this one. This is an original 1974 USA first press of the very first Kiss album. The significance, of course, with this is a couple of things really. Number one, this was the first album, the first and only album that was ever distributed by Warner Brothers on the Casablanca label. Casablanca had struck up a deal with Warner Brothers Records to distribute the album throughout the States. Unfortunately, that deal very quickly sort of went sour, and the first Kiss album would be the only album that Warner Brothers dealt with. This, like I say, is an original 1974 first pressing. And of course, if you're a Kiss fan, you'll know that the very first pressings of the first Kiss album do not include Kissing Time. To promote this album, Kiss went back into the studio around May time, I think it was, and recorded a track called Kissing Time, which I think is an old Bobby Rydell song, and a cover version of Kissing Time. It was released as a single and released to radio stations all around America to promote this. And also they had a kissing competition where radio stations would get couples to see how long they could stay in an embrace, and they would win tickets to go and see Kiss and maybe a copy of the album. And that was throughout the States. So here's the first copy of it without Kissing Time. Of course, side B of subsequent copies, pressings, would feature the first track on side B would be Kissing Time. Now, the record company promised Kiss, because the members of Kiss didn't really like Kissing Time. They just did it as a favour for the record company, and of course to get the album more noticed. But the members of Kiss, they didn't really like the song, and they were against it going on to the album. And the record company promised, their management promised, that it wouldn't go on the album. But the second pressing of the second pressing and subsequent pressings over the years have all included Kiss in Time. And if you can see very, very clearly down there, if you want to pause the video, you can see that this does not include Kiss in Time. Like I say, the first pressings didn't have Kiss in Time, but subsequent pressings did. This is a nice little way to show you. There's side one, and of course this is on the original Casablanca label with a depiction of Bogart there. I'll show you side two, which of course, like I say, in subsequent pressings kicked off with Kiss in Time. Here it doesn't. Kicks off with Deuce. Also, Kiss's first album, not only distributed by Warner Brothers, it had a little logo here. It was the first album. There's the logo of Casablanca, and Warner Brothers is just there at the bottom. This, of course, was Casablanca Records' very, very first release. It had been Casablanca Records, of course, had been formed by Neil Bogart, along with others, but Neil was the main man. This was the first album that ever came out on Casablanca Records, and of course, over the years, Kiss would actually struggle to sell records until about Alive, and then Destroyer, and then people started to get the back catalogue as well. But the first album pretty much did nothing. Other bands, of course, that appeared on Casablanca Records would be people like Donna Summer, the Village People, all sorts of bands, Parliament as well. These bands would all be very, very popular on the Casablanca label. However, Kiss weren't, like I say, until the live album Kiss Alive in 1975. First pressing without Kiss in Time. Quite rare here in the UK, because I'm sure the UK didn't see any original copies of the first Kiss album. My next copy to show for you, and these are sort of in, although they all came out originally in 1974, these repressings, what I've done here is I've put the repressings in order. This is a nice little UK and European press. This is the first copy of the first Kiss album that I ever bought. I probably bought this in the late 80s. This is from 1984. This is a reissued version on the Priceless label, still on Casablanca Records through Phonogram Records, of course, because Casablanca Records was bought many years later, and they continued to put out Kiss product. I apologise for these bits of paper here, which I stuck on as a kid. I must get rid of them, but I'm a bit scared of tearing the sleeve. So this is 1984, 10 years after it originally came out. This is, like I say, on the Priceless label. It has a different catalogue number. The catalogue number is Price 68. You can see that there. And some of these European pressings, and these are budget pressings. These weren't, I mean, I think these sort of retail for about $2.99. Some of these European reissues, early 80s reissues, are quite collectible now. Nice little bespoke insert there, which gives you some of the other albums available. This is on the tanned Casablanca label, if I can get it right. There you go. Nice little 1984 repress for Europe. I remember buying this. I bought this on my school holidays. I was in Kettering, UK, and went uptown and bought this. And I think I bought Destroyer at the same time as well. Be about 1985, 86, something like that. Priceless label. Nice little European repress from 1984. Of course, Kiss's first album was recorded at Bell Studios in New York City, October to November of 1973. And like I said earlier, the band throughout 1973 really sort of gained a decent reputation as a live act. And although the albums didn't sell very well, of course, their live shows proved to be very, very popular. And of course, Kiss would go on to be one of the greatest rock bands of all time. My next pressing for you is a 1980s press, probably around the mid-80s, this one. This is a Holland pressing of the first Kiss album. Like I said earlier on, all these albums, although they are the same record, they all have something different. And this particular copy is different because Nothing to Lose on this particular pressing is the live version. Now, nobody seems to know why that is, why the record company decided to put a live version instead of the studio version. Of course, all the songs on the first Kiss album are studio recordings, but on this particular pressing from Holland, Nothing to Lose is the live version. It doesn't say on the sleeve that it's the live version, but it is. It's a funny sort of quirky thing, and nobody seems to know why. When Gene Simmons was asked quite recently why Nothing to Lose appears on this Holland press, he didn't know either. He wasn't aware that that was the case. So this nice little Holland pressing, and it didn't cost me very much. I bought it probably a couple of years ago now online. But again, it's quite a rare copy of the first Kiss album. Like I say, no idea really. Made in the Netherlands. This particular record has a Holland stamp on it. The first Kiss album with Nothing to Lose, the live version from Kiss Alive. Now, our fourth, is it four? Yeah, it is four. Our fourth version is a nice little repress that came out just a few years ago. And this is made to look like the very first pressings you see here with the Casablanca logo on it. And also it's got the NBLP 7001 was the reissue with Kissing Time on it. This is a nice little, I think, I'll be honest with you, I think this is a bootleg. I saw this online and picked it up. This is a nice coloured vinyl version of it. Got the nice sort of reproduction of the original labels. Of course, this does feature Kissing Time, but this is a nice little greeny blue vinyl. I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but it has little glitter speckles in it. And the reason I think it's a bootleg is because you can actually audibly hear the glitter in the vinyl, and I'm not sure that Polygram Records would have necessarily used glitter within the vinyl, because it's not going to do your stylus any good. I think I've played it once, and that's about it. So that's my fourth version of the Kiss Kiss's first albums. I don't necessarily tend to buy multiple copies of albums if I'm out and about and I see an album that I've already got and I decide I'm going to pick it up again. It has to be something different, maybe a nicer copy, maybe on a different label, maybe some sort of variant, maybe an import, something like that. My last copy that I've got to show for you is the CD version of the album. Now, before they started doing the reissues back in sort of like the back end of the 90s, and on the CD tray they would sort of have information about the album and stuff like that with a clear CD tray. Before they did that, they put them out in sort of standard form. This is I'm guessing this is going to be late 80s, early 90s. One of the very first issues of the first Kiss album on CD. Of course, all the tracks are on there, including Kissing Time. But what's different about this is it's very, very basic. There's no sort of fancy pictures, no sort of extra information or anything like that on it. It also doesn't have the clear CD tray where they would give you sort of some other information. The CD booklet's pretty basic as well. However, it does give you some information about how it was recorded. Produced by Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise. And then it gives the band members, of course. The Firehouse fire engine was driven by the magnificent Eddie Shallon. Sorry, I'm reading. That's just checking it for a minute. Bell Sound Studios, New York City. October to November 1973, New York City. Yeah, there you go. Just a basic sort of booklet. Gives you that sort of information. And if you read the biographies of Paul, Gene, Peter and Ace, I don't think any of them actually enjoyed what was produced for that first album. They enjoyed the time in the studio, but I know Paul was very, very nervous about his time in the studio. And I know that Peter doesn't necessarily like the way the production came out in the end. And I think the other two members, Gene and Ace, also felt pretty much the same, that they'd missed some opportunities there. But overall, I think the first Kiss album is a really decent record. It's got a lot of sort of, it's very raw. It's one of the rawest sounding albums that they've put out. So today, if you're watching this on the day that I upload it, February the 18th, 2024, sees the 50th anniversary of the very first Kiss album. I hope you've enjoyed this run through of the copies that I've got. No doubt in the future I'll get some more. Looking for maybe get a copy of it on cassette and maybe 8-track. That would be pretty cool. Until that time, look after yourselves, look after each other. Don't forget to leave your views and your comments in the bottom. And of course, like, subscribe and all that sort of stuff. You know the deal by now. So we'll see you soon for another video right here in the studio. Ta-da.